Wanna...
Starting the recording so I don't forget. All right, so everybody, welcome to the Node.js meetup. This was a little bit of a took a little bit longer for us to get the decide who was going to talk this time. We actually did have a speaker change between when we scheduled this, but Dan is awesome. Decided to do a last minute talk for us. So thank you so much, Dan, for that. We don't currently have any sponsors for the meetup, so I can't think any. However, I would love to look for one. I recently found out that I'm going to need to purchase a copy of Zoom so that I can get the pro version for these meetups. And I run both this meetup and also the Rust Denver meetup. So it would basically be going for that. And I don't really use Zoom outside of there. So if any of you have any companies that would love to either just sponsor us or pitch in to sponsor, please get in contact with me either here or on Slack. I'm just at Brooks on the Denver Devs Slacks. And then with that, we've got a speaker lined up for next month. So we're good for the rest of the year. We usually don't do a speaker in December, but if you would like to speak next year, also let me know. And then without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dan Levy, one of my mentors. He's we taught together, and you probably heard a little bit. And then he also he's basically one of the most brilliant programmers that I've ever worked with. So anyways, I'm super excited to hear what he has to say. And with that, give it up for Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind words, Brooks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining me this evening. I wanted to talk about something completely non-technical. This is something that's been really close, very near and dear to my heart. It's about the ideas and the energy that you bring to an organization, and whether that organization has viability and is capable of seizing those moments that come up from, say, a lockdown or pandemic or other sudden shifts in our ever-changing economy. And this is all about seizing those opportunities. And so I wanted to talk about another opportunity or another instance of where a collaborative culture really paid off and to the tune of billions of dollars. But first, let me just highlight on that conversation we were just having, before I get ahead of myself, that conversation we were just having about our learning management system. We were a scrappy team of instructors running a boot camp that we didn't have the support that we needed, not even close. And my manager and fearless leader, Kyle Coberly, took it upon himself to build a LMS, a whole management system for the school, manage assignments, let the students just like learn what material they're responsible for. It had everything. And this was something that we didn't get approval to build. We didn't get permission. We just had these ideas. We knew what we needed, and we just made it happen. That was because we valued ideas over the process. We valued ideas over who had them. And so let me build on that example, or let me tell you about another case that's perhaps more famous. Now, if you like Cheetos, and I'm talking about the flamin' hot kind, the good kind, you may know, if you've been to B school or marketing, the story behind this is really famous. This product only exists because PepsiCo's CEO decades ago listened to a janitor that worked in a California location. That is something that to many people is unheard of, unimaginable. Like those two levels in a multinational corporation don't intersect unless they're cleaning their office. But this was actually a situation where the CEO of of PepsiCo. It was new and the economy was pretty bad and their product lineup was really suffering a lot in market. They did not have, they were basically only strong with one demographic. And guess what? That demographic was well represented in their big boardroom. So Richard Montañez was, as you can imagine, probably not that same demographic. What he brought to the table was this idea that maybe you should spice up your food. Long story short, this became one of the most runaway successful products in all of retail history. This Richard went on to become a VP of product and marketing and essentially added billions of dollars to their bottom line. And this was no small feat. This was valuing ideas. And that's really why collaborative culture is important, why inclusive culture or inclusive collaboration is really important. Now you may hear me talking about inclusivity and creating collaborative culture. You may think, who's this guy and why does he like alliteration so much? Fair. Fair point. That aside, moving on. The reason this is important is it impacts the future. The reason we want to be in charge of the ideas that we have and we want to include the ideas of others in our organization and the growth and the direction we go in is because it directs the future. We don't wake up in some random future, although 2020 certainly seems like it. We wake up in the future that we co-create with our colleagues and leadership and people with all strata within an organization and society. These are things we partake in. So passivity will lead to discontent. You can't opt out of this without finding yourself listless or saddled with depression and feeling like you don't impact things. And that doesn't mean that you have to come up with the next big idea. It can be small, like small improvements lead to major changes. Like, they could be fun ideas. You could share whimsical ideas. There's all kinds of ideas out there and many motivations for those ideas. And my window went away, hold up. Okay. And some ideas are more ego-driven than financial. And some of them are, okay, I promise this isn't just Silicon Valley memes and references. But really, we want to make sure that we're welcoming ideas and giving them a fair hearing anytime, whether it's whatever the motivations or whatever it may be that's prompting it. So cool, ideas are great, Dan, but how do I measure and improve this thing? What is...
Dan, I want to interrupt and ask, do you want to be sharing your screen?
Is it not?
I only see you.
No, as soon as you referenced the meme, I was like, oh no.
Great. That is, thank you. You missed my logo. Thank you. Cool. So why collaborative culture? So the motivations vary widely. And again, the ego can drive it, but that doesn't mean push away ideas because they've come from someone's ego or whatever. Every idea has some agenda or some desire behind it. It doesn't always matter to get to the bottom of it or unpack an idea completely. So cool, Dan, how do I measure and improve things? You hear people talk about culture, and it can be hard to think of that as something that's easily measurable. One of the best definitions I like about culture is it's what happens when the leadership and managers aren't looking. And that is a really practical definition of culture. But I want to get into the weeds and tell you exactly how to measure the things that matter and in a healthy idea exchange in your org. So, oh no, these aren't opinions, these are facts. Okay. So, measuring culture. What are the most important things? So really right here, we've got here's one thing that's important, and that is the number of months or days or weeks that it take before a new hire's first proposal. Like, think about that. How long does it take you to submit an idea on a team? Has it been different at other orgs? Have certain orgs been more welcoming? Once you start to reflect on, like, that's a real number you can measure. You start to think of the opportunities that maybe you'd missed, or maybe you missed from new hires that you brought on. You failed to capture their fresh take on things. The percentage of employees who contribute regularly is also an important factor. If you have a really huge and diverse company with lots of different teams, you may think, cool, we've got this diverse thought and inclusive company, check, we've done it. Well, but that doesn't always translate. In fact, in my experience, rarely translates to actually having a high percentage of participation in the idea share. If you're in a small company, you may have noticed that, hey, we actually have 30% of our 10 people, they share ideas. Cool, okay, that's pretty good. But the challenge is seeing if that continues as you hit 50, 100, 150 employees. How do you get 50 people out of 150 to keep sharing ideas? That's hard, and it's something that it's something that's different as an organization scales. Now, here's one other wrinkle that I like to throw in here. Do you welcome ideas across teams? Now, you're probably paying, if you've got a technical product or a tech organization, you probably don't look at other parts of the org as sources of ideas, like HR even, or legal. Things that aren't tech aligned or product aligned. In fact, you may have an adversarial relationship with either of those. Not looking at anyone here, but the important thing is that if you have an adversarial relationship with those teams, you'll never hear of ideas that they may have and their unique perspective. They know of the features, HR may know of the features that are especially helpful for attracting talent in a range of different markets. Maybe things that'll show, multi-language translations. Okay, cool. This will make it easier for us to hire out of the country. Get that done. And so, like, HR can give you a priority on things when they know their talent pool is a certain place, or legal can give you the exact features and the exact requirements needed to add a feature that may be ambitious, but also is compliant. And if they are invested, you're going to have a lot tighter collaboration. You're going to have a lot tighter cycle through development. Your whole org will be healthier because not only are you developing features that were, that were just great, that came out of legal, you welcomed it, and now legal feels like they have a stake in this. They're not just going to see themselves as the law firm writing really expensive invoices. Okay, maybe they will. I think that's just lawyers. But that aside, it really is important to get people with a diverse background, and that means diverse roles, diverse, job titles. It's all about valuing everyone in your organization. It sends a very strong signal when you welcome ideas from everyone, from all the way from legal to janitorial staff. I'll leave that to you to judge which one is where on that strata of an org, but that aside. Again, I just don't want to hammer on this too long, but it is critically important. When orgs accept ideas from other teams, there's a certain energy they capture, and I can't stress that enough. So really, where those ideas come from is really important, and it's important that you don't look past, or that you do look past rank and seniority as well. You don't want to have you can't suggest ideas to the CEO, or the CEO can't suggest ideas several layers below his team, when that might seem like he's stepping on a manager's toes, when really, if you're a lowly engineer, it'd be really cool to hear, like, this idea actually came from the CEO. Don't hide its origin and then find out, that thing that I was told was super important and the CEO wanted it. There's sometimes a dance of where ideas come from. You'll kind of have your product manager, give it a clean wash, and you don't know where it came from really, sometimes. But those ideas and that ability for ideas to travel in both directions, up and down a hierarchy, is really important and really fosters great communication, and fluid communication in an org. So this is important for especially new hires. You have no better source of naive, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed sentiment that is one of the best things that you get out of a new hire. You're going to spend this money. You're going to have this ongoing expense, but you will never again get a chance to have their first impression, their first take ever again. So it means it's important to celebrate and welcome ideas early. In fact, I'll cover this a little bit more, but you really want to welcome ideas, in some cases aggressively, even silly ideas that come out of nowhere, silly ideas that happen on a park bench. I'm pretty sure this is actually how Venmo came up. Like, what if we took a social network and made it e-commerce? Huh? And everyone's like, who would want to share your finance, whatever? Okay, that probably happened on that bench right there. So all ideas like that may seem silly or may seem disposable, they all lead to, they may lead to something unexpected or surprising, or the next billion-dollar idea. So let me talk about real quick the crafting culture. So it's all about setting expectations. And this new hires thing, you can start to set expectations. What better time than when you've got a new hire? Having them do an exercise like, hey, our requirement is that you write a proposal on day one. Any improvement, like if you walked in and saw the Keurig machine and the K-cups were on opposite sides of the kitchen, you thought that was ridiculous. Cool. It doesn't matter if you're the chief financial officer. Write that idea down, propose the change, and then go move the K-cup machine. The ideas should be simple, short, and part of making this a practice that's easy is making it so that the expectations are flexible and small, and it can be a simple idea like like putting a time off spreadsheet together at your small company or whatever. It may not even be in your direct responsibility. So, and in that case, teams will probably have to discuss and figure out ownership and responsibilities for themselves, but I'll leave that to the viewer. So one of the things that is, one of the pushbacks I hear is that, oh, this is a waste of time for management. We don't, this is getting repetitive, or, oh, new hires come in and tell us, hey, you should move the coffee machine. And they get tired of hearing that. Really, this isn't about getting a annoying leadership. This is really about getting practice, communicating, just reevaluating things with fresh eyes, and getting that practice, making it a habit of management to review proposals. So I did tell you I was going to offer a solution here, and I have an easy one. Okay, maybe it's not totally easy, but it's a good one. So let's dive into it. Let's unpack this. Shoot, that's probably not the right word to use for a JavaScript meetup. I meant, okay, we're going to go through some high-level concerns and things to focus on. So these are the 4 things I've identified that really support a collaborative culture. And okay, this is a sidebar. I spent more time trying to make this spell cats than I'm comfortable admitting, but that is easily 90% of the time it took to prepare this. I've tried to make speed acceleration and spell cat. Anyway, if you can figure out how to make this spell cats, I owe you a case of beer or something. Okay, back to the presentation. So the keys to collaborative culture are here. The most important one, far and away, is safety. Now, we've all experienced those times where our ideas fall on deaf ears or just fall flat on its face. And that can cause us to hold back. And like I said, it can really inhibit our ability to share ideas comfortably. This slide, I think hurts to read because it's true. Your best ideas were killed by fear. That's true for everyone. We all have that ability to read a situation, determine, hey, is that an inside thought or an outside thought? Well, some of us have that ability, and most of us are right most of the time. But the thing is, if you want to create an idea factory, if you want your org and your team to be a hive of ideas, it has to be safe to share even the silliest and nonsensical of ideas. This is a critical requirement. Without this, without feeling like it's okay to share an idea, even ideas that maybe have been rehashed before, the quickest ways to kill an idea and to get someone to stop sharing ideas is to push back and immediately say, oh, we've done that. And if they don't get met with supporting comments or feedback to help tease out that idea, figure out what's different than what's been done before. If that effort isn't put in, not only won't you stop killing ideas by fear, you'll stop them sharing any ideas in their tracks. Okay, our next thing is speed. This is critical as well. It is almost as important as the first one, hence number 2. This is part of this equation where if it's really hard to shoot down a proposal that someone spent 6 months on or 6 weeks on. It's really hard to go to them and say, have you thought of not doing that? Even if it's really a good point that maybe this isn't something that's even worth doing, you can't really suggest that to someone who spent months on a project without really having a great personal relationship, probably one of the closer relationships in that person's life. But that's often what we find ourselves in, or I see it in many companies, where ideas are built in silos individually. And then when they're shared, sometimes you'll see hey, let's turn this into an RFC. Okay, those 3 letters should send chills, but let's turn this into an RFC and request for comment. Well, cool. What if my comments, I don't want comments, I want compliments. That's what I want, request for compliments. And that's kind of the direction that it goes in. You are basically fishing for either compliments or, what inevitably happens is you'll find complaints. That's the thing you get. You get complaints, not even comments or feedback. But all of that is high stakes talk. All of that is high stakes. What I'm getting at is don't wait till the RFC. Don't wait weeks. Get tweet-sized ideas. I want brain farts. These are tiny ideas. The reason they have to be small is to make them cheap to produce. As you get an idea smaller and smaller, it's easier to discard. It's easier not to be personally invested and so attached to an idea that it's okay if someone at work blows it out of the water. Cool. Okay, well, let's record why, and we put your sentiment and then move on. That way you've got a pipeline of ideas with the decisions of what decision was made where and why at that point in time. So it's really lowering the stakes and the expectations is a two-sided thing. And that's why I kind of brought this under speed, because it's all about, you want little time invested on the person proposing the idea and the person reviewing the idea. The person reviewing is also expected to write comments. And now I've been asked to comment on something that was like 18 pages and a huge proposal. And at that point, honestly, I don't know where to start. I don't know, other than saying, yeah, dude, this is a great cloud migration plan, cool plan. When there's a whole lot of detail in there. You don't, asking for comments or input at a too mature stage doesn't get great results. And it's really hard to figure out exactly who's got the time to give you meaningful feedback at that time. So speed is something that helps us lower the costs for the author and the reviewer. So the next thing, these last 2 points are less critical. They're key components as well, but they are still very important. So let me quickly move through them here. So as a rule of thumb, you want to have your instructions for any proposals, whatever the shape they may be, you want it on less than a page. The reason is those tend to be sprawling instructions and sets of gatekeeping exercises that are probably not necessary. If we can all read, we can probably read ideas. Less rules, more communication. Oh wait, there is one rule, no RFCs. Okay, then less rules, more communication. Okay. So the next thing is transparency. So, oh man, that's a really nice looking board. Okay, transparency. This is critical because you don't want your ideas to feel like they're going into the circular inbox. If they're just going into the trash bin, a rejected idea should not be just lost to history. If my ideas are being preserved, sure, they may be laughed at many years from now. That was hilarious. We thought QR codes were going to be huge. But you may actually find value in looking at this historical record. You will have a pipeline over time of essentially just ideas that are worth money. Like these things will accumulate. And over time, if you're looking for brainstorming sessions or you want to have a hack week, it's really fun to go through a backlog of ideas and start picking them out. Like it's fun to lead brainstorming sessions that way. And it really can just supercharge those experiences, having some shared historical system. And be flexible. Keep it simple. Use spreadsheets, Slack threads, Notion, Asana, whatever you want, whatever your team's familiar with. But try things out. Like be open to see what works. Of course, also work within your organization's hierarchy because you want to have everything accessible within the org. Now, the next part I want to talk about is really red flags. These are things that make it really hard to implement these changes. And again, my RFCs, my old friend. This 10%. So percents are hard with orgs of different sizes for sure. So, adjust as needed, but really think hard about how many people are on the names of the proposals in your organization or your team. Chances are it's just a handful of people. And I'd bet a handful of people across organizations of almost any size. But organizations that appreciate ideas from every rank, those are ones where you can actually feel the difference of this number moving. Also, distant leadership, meaning they're not accessible. Like they don't input on any ideas. Like, while it's terrifying to see a CEO or a C-suite person come and comment on your ideas, it's much better that they come and comment rather than just lurk and never say anything. So leadership does play a critical role in this, but even if you're an independent contributor on a team somewhere, in a giant org, you can still control the fate of the ideas that your team produces. So keep that in mind. So I couldn't leave this without focusing on RFCs. There's something that is I want to avoid using really charged language, but they're kind of a cancer on companies. They're an exercise in proving that we are real engineers, that we are serious about communicating ideas. And if you don't know what RFCs look like, you don't have to look it up. I'll just spare you. It looks like a bunch of ASCII text in an endless stream that actually loops back on itself, and it just keeps going. You don't actually, RFCs being the sterile format that they are, being a standard that lacks an actuals definition and is therefore lacking in any standards. And there is an RFC on how to write RFCs, but it's hilariously not followed by any RFCs that proceed for years. So you have this crazy world of these engineers that act like RFCs are a template. You just use it, you put in your definitions and abstract and findings, conclusion, or whatever it is. But you talk to another engineer, they'll give you a completely different definition of what has to be included. So they're bad because there is a illusion of consistency, And there's an illusion that that everyone can do this. Hey, just look up how to write an RFC. See, it's inclusive. You can figure it out. When in reality, if you do look up what an RFC looks like, it's terrifying. There is just, it looks like close to a contract and legal contract or technical diagrams. And again, that's a mature, those are usually for mature ideas. Like request for comments is great when you are, say, HP, Broadcom, and some other PC manufacturers proposing TCP congestion standards. Cool. Okay, I hope I didn't lose anyone saying TCP congestion. But that is, I mean, that's the nature of RFCs. They're terribly dry, terribly technical, and very dense. Like, I don't know if I've ever read through an entire RFC, IETF one. So again, I want to highlight that this is something that you will get a different answer from everyone when you ask what an RFC is. And every company seems to act like these are standards. This is a well-respected, established practice. And it's, I don't know, it's just, maybe I'm the only one that's noticed this, but it seems like this crazy thing that every company I've worked at has this part of their organization that worships at the altar of RFCs. And every one of them does it different, yet they all blindly keep acting like they do not. I promise this is not going to turn into an hour of me just ripping on RFCs. But again, this is really as important to really figure out where this intersection of making sure your ideas flow freely and the things that are often the rocks upon which they crash. RFCs tend to be the most common one, or highly rule-based and templated and structured formats really suck the energy and excitement out of an idea. This dance of expectations expands a little bit more on what I was talking about a few slides ago, where authors tend to want small recommendations the further you go. Reviewers don't want to put in wasted effort. I don't want to go and give you edits when you're not going to take them because you've already decided how the thing's going to go. And it's important for all people involved to pay attention to this. Reading, writing, and thinking all take energy and time. And it's very easy to get burnt out on this if you don't allocate time for this. So it's important that management understands that, you know, there's a 2-hour block on Wednesdays where we review, you know, the team's, ideas maybe even a Zoom meeting. There has to be some process where it's taken seriously and there's dedicated team time to do this. That also sends a signal to everyone in the org that, hey, we're going to dedicate time to these ideas. So we value them. And you know, that's a really common way for a company, or an easy way for a company that's often overlooked, to show what they value, and that's spend time. So spending time, an hour on ideas every once a week, is a pretty effective way to show what you value. And like this dance of expectations, the thing about it is you never know what kind of RFC you're getting. And I'm using RFCs kind of generically. Sometimes companies will call these like formatted, highly structured proposal formats other names. As I know, some of the people in this room have worked at orgs that have other acronyms. But the point is, it's, you know, RFC, whether it's request for compliment, request for complaint, request for consistency, or request for cover your ass. I don't know. Those are usually the outcomes of RFCs. I don't see them ever leading to real collaboration. It's, you know, I'd be really interested to hear of cases where ideas were actually welcomed. And the other thing, let me highlight really where this is most critical and why this applies to this particular audience. And in this special time of year, Hacktoberfest, is if you've got an open source project, or if you're working on TC39 standards moving forward, this is something that actually takes a lot more effort, because you're not, again, getting collaboration and getting people involved isn't just getting people to file bug tickets. You want them actually filing pull requests. And so being intentional about that takes even more energy. And it's important to lay out what people can expect from you and what you're able to do. but also look for those opportunities where someone's getting new to the industry or looking to get, move into open source. Really try and focus on what they need and what you can do to set them up for future success. Whether that's collaboration markdown that gives them the install instructions and any notes about the weird, I don't know, React Native built toolchain you have or whatever. Just putting that effort in, or filing the ticket that needs to be written, and then a senior engineer may be able to write that. Being intentional about this collaboration really leads to stronger projects and stronger organizations, stronger teams, and better outcomes that are aligned with the things you're looking for. It's really about being intentional about what ideas and what things you're focusing on, and making sure that's a pipeline that's continuously going. So let me see here. I think that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to just end on my 4 things here. If I can jump to my slide. There we go. So again, the things I want you to think about as you go about your week is, do you have the safety at your org? Do you have the ability to cheaply and speedily share ideas? And is there clarity in the process, in the system, and is there transparency in that system? Is it accessible long-term? And is it a durable place where ideas can be discussed and it's easy to see the discussions? Because you want to facilitate that discussion. Okay, are there any questions? Or I always forget my name. Thank you. My name is Dan Levy, and it's been a pleasure presenting, creating a collaborative culture. Are there any questions? Thanks, Chad. Brooks, do we have a?
Well, I have myself a question. At what point in time do you recommend multiple systems, like one for individual teams in a company and then one for the company itself, or just a single system spread across all of the teams?
So this could actually vary a bit, and it depends on how strategically aligned a team is with the upper management. Like sometimes it's cool to keep ideas off the books. I hope my boss isn't watching. Sometimes it's good to keep ideas off the books and maintain a separate. I see Kyle vanished when you're not my boss anymore, dude. It's you.
I'm here.
Okay. It's something I think that's situational. You need to decide what makes sense for you, and sometimes it means you want visibility for your team, and other times you want your team to control that visibility so that you can manage how crazy your experiments get without it distracting upper management. I'm sure you've had it before where upper management gets part of a story and freaks out that a team is going in the wrong direction. And really, a lot of experimentation is good. And Brooks, does that answer your question?
I think so.
It depends is really the answer. Like it really, think of what you want. Think of, do you want your level of experimentation to be visible higher up, or how higher up? But again, like you want to be able to share. I always lean towards sharing. It's a much better posture. But the whole idea here is about safety. And if you can't meet that safety requirement with something that's being shared, perhaps too broadly, prioritize the safety. Make sure it's safe for your people to collaborate on whatever the biggest size group you possibly can, and try to just prioritize safety. That would be my rule of thumb. Were we on Twitch stream?
We are, but no questions there. I guess I have another question. What's your go-to when you start a new company? You come in. What are your go-to things culture-wise to sort of start changing?
First, I figure out if they're welcome to these things. Not every company is really that jazzed to have hey, check out the new guy, all these ideas and shit. That's not that's a really common thing. And especially if you've mentored junior engineers as I have, they are it can be a little fatiguing to just keep having the same suggestions of, hey, SQL's cool, but have you tried MongoDB? And you know, like after hearing that like, you know, 20 times, it's really easy to, you know, it's really easy to, you know, get dismissive, but that you want to push that aside and really welcome ideas and get used to the practice. Like maybe it's important to evaluate what database you're using and practice that, talking about it with those juniors. That's not a useless exercise, even if it feels repetitive or redundant. What was the question? There was one other point I wanted to make.
It was like, what's your go-to? Like, what are the top like three things that you want to see at every company you work at, and try to implement them at every company you work at?
So I have a system where I a process that's either spreadsheet or a Notion to collect and distill ideas and involve stakeholders. That process is really, it can be super dialed in on the Notion side, or really lightweight and low overhead on the spreadsheet side. And there's ways to tune that to set it up for notifications and all that. And you know, so I like to start small and start simple. Just, hey, here's a spreadsheet. Here's some ideas I had. You know, and try to let people know that I'm not going to be offended if they just discard them, or if they tell me this has been tried, you know, or why do you have dumb ideas, or whatever it is. I'm not going to be offended, but this is, you know, it's something that I want to model first and say like, you know, this is an important exercise, and try highlight that the, you know, the newest employees have the freshest take on things. The freshest. No, they are, you know, like I said, it's like one resource that you don't get another shot at. And so trying to model that when I join a team, show that behavior or show those, that fresh take on things, and then kind of capture that as an opportunity to say, hey, here's this idea tracking system, or here's a system that'll help us really collaborate better over our ideas so that we're not all using personalized notes and whatever, and private DMs and all that. Brooks, it's kind of hard. I guess I've started at different roles, from leadership to engineering to back to leadership, back to engineering. So it kind of depends on what role I'm coming in. Any other questions?
In I guess a broad industry wide view, do you find more companies that are open to these kinds of practices are closed-minded?
Sydney, that's a great question. It's an interesting thing because companies will say they love ideas. All companies say they're fans of ideas. Hey, we're, you know, this is act like an owner, or, you know, some companies will have values like that and tell you, yeah, you can idea all you want. But then what happens is submit an idea and someone's like, you missed a formatting. You didn't put the stakeholder line. And then you submit a change with the stakeholder line. And then they're like, no, that needs to be all uppercase. Did you not read the format? And then it becomes this exercise of like all these things that are not about the proposal or not about the idea. And you get trapped in this, are you doing the format right? Or are you doing the template right? All these things that are misdirecting or, you know, misdirecting the energy of the ideas into things that aren't productive. And it's a knee-jerk thing that a lot of orgs do. They'll either put up obstacles or say, oh, legal said we couldn't do that. Or they'll say legal said we couldn't do X. And you didn't hear it from legal. You heard it from management, who then generalized what they heard 3 years ago from legal. What you want to do is hear it from legal, get exactly the words of what can't be done and can be done, because maybe your idea is okay now. So it's when leadership management push back and say, oh, we did that. Oh, no, yeah, we can't hire there because HR said we can't hire there. 2 years ago. Oh, so-and-so just joined from that state? Oh, cool. Well, yeah, that's right, things change. So it's really easy for someone new at a company to just take the leadership's word for it when they say things like that. You know, you're not going to question your boss when they're saying, hey, we can't hire someone in Florida. Maybe you don't want to hire Floridians, no offense. that's an important opportunity to, an important idea, an important thing to practice if you're a manager, is to really try to reset your vision, reset your view, and reevaluate things at that point in time, and reevaluate the inputs and outputs on this decision. Those opportunities that are lost are your competitors' next big break. And they're not the ones that are worried about, oh, our legal department said we can't years ago. They're not worried about that because they didn't exist. They didn't have those constraints. They're not even thinking that. And your competitors may be free and unencumbered from the constraints of the past, or the past constraints. And making sure you're in management and you're attuned to what's changing is really important. I bet many managers had a very strong feeling about letting their employees work from home this time last year. And anyone who didn't adjust or kept those strong feelings is probably not doing great at the moment. So if you're not willing to adjust and adapt to things as they change, and are keenly attuned to the variables that as they change, that's just a lost opportunity for management and leadership. And I think that's that's my take there. Are there any other questions on creating collaborative culture? Spark emoji.
How'd you figure this all out, Dan?
I'm just a collaborative culture kind of guy. No, I worked with fantastic people in the past that have shown me the value of feedback. And thanks, Kim and Kyle. And this has been a process of me learning how ideas are valued in an organization and not valued. And I've seen both sides of it. I've been in leadership at schools and been on the other side, and been in a teacher, and been in leadership at tech companies, and been an individual contributor. And the ideas that, a lot of the ideas that I came up with or developed actually came from my customers. And I realized, like, early on, that was, me accepting ideas, being open to things, and I would collect them all in a giant spreadsheet. This was decades ago. And I've been trying to recreate that system and include the feedback dynamics and the things that I've learned since, that really show that there's this point where you get to, in management or leadership, that you have a backlog of ideas. And instead of feeling the weight of that, or the impending doom of we're never going to get this done, there's a flip that happened where I started looking at the backlog as, holy hell, look at this amazing opportunity, this just sea of great ideas we have. And I was like, wow, there's two minds I could have on this. I could either look at this as a huge burden, this imposing edifice of just impossible tasks, or look at all these great opportunities, these things that I could just pick from and implement and drop in at any future date. I'm not obligated. As long as the expectations around that are set, it's really it really energizes you in leadership and as an independent contributor to look towards the horizon, see what other things are possible. If you know there's ideas that have been half-baked, maybe quarter-baked, somewhere in there, that, like, where the direction the team's going, or what the team's capable of, or almost capable of. And we get 2 more people on the team next year, suddenly a lot of ideas that we couldn't do before are now possible. So it's I just look at it as a net positive, having that backlog, and then suddenly realizing all that, it allows me to just see it as purely as an opportunity. And so I really wanted to capture this to bring about the things that I think really are overlooked, like safety and speed. I think most people focus on the speed and depth of an idea, and they propose these elaborate proposals to show how smart they are and awesome they are and how they've thought of everything. Don't. Because if you try it, you're going to be expected to keep it up. And that's a pain in the ass. I've been in that position many a time. Several people here have even helped me dig myself out of those holes. Thanks, Kim. And I getting into the, hey, I'm going to write this like 6-page thing and I'm going to get it done this week. And it's just going to, and you try to do everything. And then guess what? You now own the process and you own fixing all the problems and you own taking on the feedback. Don't own everything. So making things fast is about making them cheap, really. So these two things, safety and speed, I want people to really focus on as the most important factors here that are actually really tightly linked. Cool. Any other questions or are we still recording? Brooks, we could go off the record if anyone has questions for off the record.
We are recording, but like obviously we're all, well, many of us are on Denver Devs. We found in many different places. Are there any other questions? Where can people find you, Dan, if they wanted to ask any follow-up questions?
Oh yeah, I'm on Denver Devs with my name Dan Levy, and then I'm on Twitter at just SML, JUST SML. There's also my website danlevy.net, and I think I'm JUST SML on like every platform. I usually remember a contact slide, but I forgot this time. Sparkle emoji. Just paper over that guy. Cool. So yeah, here's my stuff. It's at the bottom of the slide deck. I'll share it on the meetup page, and I'll share the link to Brooks so you can put it on the YouTube link.
Yep, and I've got the link. I've got thanks to Lewis. It broke off.
Was that a duck?
Hernandez, who shared the links out in Zoom chat. I put those on the meetup page, and they also got out into the Twitch chat.
Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I will, let me stop sharing here. Cool. Thank you much. It's always a pleasure to present to Node.js Meetup, and thanks again to my friend Brooks. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And we'll be back next month. We're always on the third Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And then the talk starts around 7 p.m. And we almost always live stream them and then put up the videos of the recording afterwards onto YouTube. And with that, I hope that you all have a great night and stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, baby.
Bye.